So thank you all for coming. We're the 2018 Stony Brook iGEM team, and we're recruiting for next year's team. So thank you all for coming, and our application is also live, so we'll talk about that later. But the deadline is going to be basically when 2019 starts, so 11:59 p.m. on the 31st. Yeah.
Yeah, up to Sunday.
Okay, so what is iGEM? iGEM stands for International Genetic Engineered Machine, and as we said on our little flyer, we're an independent student-run synthetic biology team. So basically, we kind of work on our own for like the majority of the year, except we have a lot of advisors that we refer to, and it's a worldwide synthetic biology competition. So it's not just like America or whatever; it's teams from all over the world. And in the end, we meet in Boston usually. Yes, this was all the teams this October when we met in Boston. This was a picture of all of us. And we want to play with a little Where's Waldo, if you can find the Stony Brook iGEM. Where?
You can see our shirts. That's our shirts. Yeah. That's actually a trick question though, because we're in two places.
We are in two places.
You can definitely see
There's
it.
someone after there and then some below, the group after.
Yeah.
That's why we're very tiny, especially if you go on the bottom.
Yeah. There was like over how many people? 1,000, 2,000 people there.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that. And
something
if you
like
go
that.
to the next slide, I think it's like there were 45 countries or something
Yeah.
that participated, which is really cool.
Yeah. So we actually Skype teams from like China, France, Germany, like we actually
Kazakhstan, it's pretty
Kazakhstan.
cool.
Like we Skyped them actually and like spoke with them and exchanged ideas with them, which is really cool.
So you get to meet a lot of new people, and it's pretty awesome. Yeah, that was us in the convention center during the competition. In front of the sign, that's our advisor, John Peter Graham. Dr. John Peter Graham.
So I just want to mention, to get a better understanding of like what the iGEM competition is, I think it's good to go over who won the competition last year. So, what's that? What we just won? So, yeah. So if you look over here, Printeria, it's a team from Valencia, Italy. They basically made like a printer that does genetic engineering for you. So this one doesn't work very well, but it's the top one. Anyway, so that was pretty cool. This other team, Epinoma, they're from UC San Diego, right? And we actually spoke to them, and they helped our project this year. And they're pretty cool because they produced a cancer diagnostic and won like $100,000 for their work. We made like an app. Cockroach Terminator by SZU China. They killed cockroaches with yeast or something. I don't know, but it was pretty funny. So it was interesting. So these the three teams you see over here are what are called the undergraduate level. So teams work on the graduate, undergrad, and high school levels. So we were competing with kind of these people. Vibrigens and Factory, these are the two graduate teams. So they did some pretty cool, like year-long stuff that is a little bit above our pay grade. So Vibrigens made it so that you can genetically engineer bacteria and other organisms in like a single day, as opposed to like months at a time. And then Factory, here we go. Factory basically used viruses to like construct different proteins and different things like that. And this high school team produced catnip with bacteria and trapped cats. So that was pretty cute. But basically, like as you can see, it's all different kinds of stuff. And you know, it's like these are the kind of projects that you can look to as what the competition is made of. It's like all different kinds of things for different kinds of purposes.
So what is synthetic biology? So we talked about iGEM being international genetically engineered machine, right? Genetic engineering. So that falls into the field of synthetic biology. So what it is just using genetic engineering to solve real world problems. As an iGEM team, you guys decide your own project as a group. So this problem and solution is up to your own discretion. It's your decision. And some of the big iGEM teams work on medicine, the environment, industry, things that can be used commercially, things like that. So the way that it works, it's kind of stuff like that. And then afterwards, this machine is gonna transcribe the DNA, translate that into protein, and these proteins produced by the bacterial machine could be used to solve the problems in the world today. So you can take frog DNA, put it in a bacteria, you can take human DNA, put it into yeast, anything along that nature. And you don't have to just restrict it to protein. Some iGEM teams have worked with promoters, like we worked with promoters, and also other types of DNA, like terminators and stuff like that. So the way that the iGEM team works, right? This is how your whole year-long project is gonna work. You start off in like February, and that's when you do like a lot of your project design and also human practices. So what that means is you guys are gonna all have tiny little groups where you come up with small ideas, and then together you kind of join together and exchange ideas and form like two big ideas, and that goes into a final idea. So that's project design. Once you have an idea, you're gonna do what's called a design, test, redesign model. So what that means is you're gonna have your idea and you're gonna change it, right? You're gonna talk to experts. So iGEM, because you're all undergrads, right? You're not gonna have that PhD level knowledge that most researchers have. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna reach out to experts. You're gonna do what's called human practices. So what that means is literally, like I said, reaching out to experts, hearing their opinions, and hearing how it's going to affect the community, and taking that information back and reflecting on it, and then saying, let me adjust this part of my project to suit this goal. So for example, one big team that underwent human practices made this material, this protein, that was able to filter smoke, right? And originally they were targeting it towards smokers, but when they reached out to the government to get an idea from like the CDC, they said don't give it to people that are smoking because it's going to encourage them to smoke more. It's going to tell them that there's no ramifications to your lungs or anything like that. So then they turned around and they adjusted their project. And instead of targeting to smokers, they targeted to industrial factory workers. So that's what iGEM is all about, taking your project and being one with the entire community. Science isn't just science for science, it's science for a better goal. Then you're also going to be doing fundraising. This is all before you actually start doing wet lab work. So you're a student-run team, you don't have money, you need to reach out to companies to get things like gloves for free and like pets for free, which you're probably not going to get for free, but like that kind of idea of getting a lot of stuff and getting your resources together, because without resources you just can't science. Then you have DNA design. So like we said earlier, you're going to take your DNA of interest and put it into a bacteria. So you need to design your DNA for that, which is really fun. I was part of that team. And it's really, really fun to just like play with DNA and then design it so that you can go into bacteria. After that, you go into what's called modeling. So like I said, like iGEM's all about taking different areas of the world, taking different communities and putting it together. So one thing that they also reward is doing modeling. So that's using mathematical simulations, computer simulations, anything like that to see how your protein is going to work out, either at a cellular level or at a community-based level. And once you do that, you might have to go back into the DNA design. Maybe your A should be a T, maybe your C should be a G, and just adjusting it that way. Then you go to wet lab and programming. So that's when you do like for people that are more interested in the biological side of things, doing the pipetting, doing the DNA extractions, doing stuff like that. Programming is for people that aren't in the field of, that don't want to really focus on that. So iGEM, because we talked about it being part of different communities, right? Like that's something that I'm stressing over and over again. It's also about taking people from different disciplines. So someone that's in modeling, right? They might be more of an AMS major. They might be someone more interested in applied math and statistics. Whereas someone doing programming is going to be someone that might be more interested in computer science, and they could program our robot. So we actually have a robot that we won. It's about a $4,000 robot, and all it does is it pipettes. And someone that's interested in computer science might want to learn how to use Python and code the robot so it can automate protocols. So rather than people having to manually pipette back and forth, they can actually do something that's more efficient, more automated, and that way you can focus on other things when you're doing science. For programming, there's also the idea of expanding, right? So you don't have to just pipette the robot. We have a website that you also have to code in HTML. And there's also this other aspect of public engagement, right? We talk about it later too, but we actually talk about with outreach, where you want to educate the community on synthetic biology. A lot of people are scared of genetic engineering. They hear GMOs and they immediately think all of it is bad. But in reality, it's not. It can be used really efficiently to solve problems. For example, insulin is a commonly known example where people took the human insulin gene and put it into E. coli so that they could produce insulin for us, so that we don't have to take people, round them up, take their insulin out, and inject it into other people. That doesn't work out in the real world. So That's
I'm sure
what.
that was the actual practice.
But like just the idea of like using synthetic biology to solve problems in the world today. That's what synthetic biology is about, and that's what you want to educate people. So someone doing programming might want to make a computer game that encourages kids, gets them to see how exactly synthetic biology works. There's also a lot of activities that we did over the summer. Our team went really like ham with presenting to other schools and stuff. We went to the school, the Cleary School for the Deaf, presented to children there. We went to Makers Fair, Long Island and World, and those are just like festivals and like places that's like a science fair, but for adults too. We went to middle schools, high schools, Dolan DNA Learning Center, science camps. We went to so many different communities to try to engage them. You also made novel toys, just activities that engage the public. We also spoke with Nassau County Executive Laura Curran. I don't know if you know about Nassau County Executive Laura Curran, but she's kind of like the president of Nassau County. That's her role. So it's just spreading the word and talking to people in different communities and understanding their point of view of synthetic biology, and also educating them on the advancements that it makes in society. So then while you're doing your outreach, right, that can be like on the side in parallel to doing the experiments. So once you get your DNA into your bacteria, right, it's producing these proteins, you want to test a lot of things. First, is it working? How is the problem being solved? So that's what experiments are for. So that's just like coming up with your own controlled experiments and doing statistical analyses at the same time, which comes later. And also wiki design, which is putting your results on your website. We'll show you our website, and it's just a really cool thing. Also, I mentioned the robot earlier, and I totally forgot that the robot was on the slide. So this is a GIF of the robot. So you can see that it's just pipetting back and forth, and you can code it to do whatever you want. Then you have the presentation which you develop, and you kind of present a bazillion times in the month of October as practice, and then you have the giant jamboree. Next year, it's gonna be October 31st through November 4th.
So yeah, as we said before, iGEM is just what you make of it. Like you can choose whatever project you want to do. So these are just some past projects that we did. So our first project in 2014 was getting these bacterial peptides that are also found in like bee venom to combat bacterial infections instead of using antibiotics, because you don't know, antibiotic-resistant bacteria are a very big problem now. Another team developed an insulin-free system for diabetics, something to detect pancreatic cancer, so on and so forth. And our team last year made algae secrete sugars that can be used for biofuels and bioplastics, and also sink carbon dioxide for prevent global warming and all that stuff. So you can see it's all like very different and diverse topics. It's really just whatever you guys are passionate about or interested in. You choose what you want to research. And you find people on campus, professors and stuff like that, who will help you get to that goal. Or outside of campus. We contacted a lot of people from University of San Diego, as I said before, University of Michigan, and like experts in all these different fields to help us with our project. We also talked to CEOs of biotech companies to help us get a better idea of how to go forward and what problems we need to solve. And this is just like a little picture of our algae, as you can see over here. And yeah, the 2019 project is completely up to you guys. If you make it onto the team, as we said before, you're going to brainstorm a bunch of ideas, and whichever one is most interesting to you guys, you'll pursue over the summer and try to make it work. So these are some of the awards that we won. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, what do you want to talk about this?
Sure.
These are the awards we won in 2018.
So basically, for to win an award in iGEM, there are 3 categories. There's bronze, silver, and gold. And you don't really compete against other teams, but rather you compete against the guidelines the iGEM committee has set forth. So to get gold, you basically have to complete a list of requirements such as human practices, integrated design, and modeling and everything. So our team, the 2018 team, is the first Stony Brook team to get gold, and only one of the 7 teams from the United States to get gold. Like teams like Cornell, Columbia, NYU, I think, like Harvard
MIT,
did not get
they
gold.
all didn't get
They all didn't get gold. So we are actually one of the more elite ones. Elite ones to win gold. And we are also the first runner-up for the best energy project. So they're gonna divide up. So when you come to October, you're gonna submit a judging form for different categories you want to be judged in. And we submitted a lot of applications into a lot of categories, and energy project was one of them. So we got runner-up, so we got second in the whole wide world in terms of energy project of the undergraduate level
And overgraduate.
and overgraduate.
Yeah, and there's some teams that like got bacteria to produce electricity to charge like cell phones, and
Yeah.
somehow
And we
We
beat
beat
them,
them.
yeah.
I don't know how that works, but
Like cars go. And we are also the only team to win all 3 iGEM grants. So these are kind of the sponsor for iGEM, and they send out applications for you to submit so that you can win their grants. And we won the robot for OpenTron. We also won money grants from Omega and GeneScript so that we can buy the products and thus expedite our lab process.
yeah, I think it was like a total of like $18,000.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah. And you run through that money really fast, but, so then,
You guys.
Oh, you use
yeah, so then how do you apply?
So how to apply? So, so these are requirements. Research experience is definitely not required. A lot of, in fact, I think we look for motivated freshman students to try to come because this could be your gateway into research. And this is what Dr. Gergen wants this team to be about. It's about bringing more people who hasn't done research before into research and kind of show them the ways. Because honestly, iGEM is it's a very laid out process for you. So you get all the information you need, you get all the advisors, you have your network set up already through the alums or through past advisors. So you can really get started here. And then any majors will come, like we said before, it's very multidisciplinary research. So comp sci majors, AMS majors, bio majors, biochem, chemistry, anything. Like any major is welcome.
Yeah, I'm like mechanical engineering major.
We
so
have
I'm
engineering, we
related
have
to
biology engineering, yeah. And then, so the timing of this is, there's a 1-credit spring reading course that's usually about 2 hours per week on a Friday afternoon. That's what it was for us. But it's up to you guys, like, depending on everyone's schedule, you guys can put that reading course anywhere kind of like that. And then it's about 30 hours per week in the summer. So you're gonna come in, you're gonna have a dedicated lab space to you for the entirety of summer. You're gonna come in on your own volition, voluntarily come in and do all these things, about 30 hours per week. And then about 7 to 10 hours per week in the fall semester, kind of just round things out, practice presentation, finish coding a wiki and everything. And so the biggest quality I think we want to look for is leadership and teamwork. So iGEM, you're gonna be stuck with the same people, say 15 other people for the entirety of the year. And there's gonna be conflict and there's gonna be team dynamic issues. So that's why we want people who works well in the team and also can take up the mantle of leadership whenever they're needed. A lot of times, there's a lot of people who can't make all week, all year round, kind of like that. But we need people to take on the active role in group work and to be willing to take initiative to either start another part of the project or finish another part of the project or kind of come up with new ideas, etc.
Yeah, so like add to what Woody was saying just now, we never introduced ourselves, who did that again? So when it comes to the summer commitment, you do get 2 weeks off, right? Like, we understand it's the summer and you want to enjoy your time with your family and all that. And also, the 30 hours per week doesn't include lunch, and you don't have to spend it completely in the lab doing wet lab work. Like for example, if you're doing coding, if you're doing statistical analysis, if you're making hardware, you're not going to be doing that work in the lab. You're probably going to do it from home or from another nearby facility, and that's totally fine. You just need to be accountable for your 30 hours per week because otherwise, like, you're not really being involved in the team. And when it comes to like teamwork, right? Like what he was saying, it's really important that it's willingness to be part of a team, right? iGEM, all of this is self-driven, right? Like there's no advisor in the room all the time. It's you guys coming up with your own project, bringing on your own time, trying to make this work. Like for example, what we did was we actually spaced out our shifts, right? So we had some people that were like the morning shift, some people that were like the afternoon shift, and people that worked through the summer were part of what was called like the late night shift. So we had some people come in lab after work and stay there until like 12 or 1, and like you don't have to do that, but it's just a way of getting your hours, getting to the 30 minimum requirement. And then also with group work, we do really want you guys to enjoy it, right? Like we definitely had fun this summer. At some points, like we went to Adventureland together as a group. We went to Taco Bell at least like 10-15 times. More. Like it's about having fun, enjoying yourself, enjoying the group you're with. You know, you want to bond with the people that you're with. Because if you're with people you don't like for 30 hours a week, you start losing your mind, right? Like you want to enjoy having to come to Stony Brook, spending 2 hours on the train getting there and 2 hours coming back. So like
Yeah, that's a great community.
that's a
Also,
great commuting.
I just want to mention that a lot of the lab work is like stuff that you just like set up and you leave it alone for a couple hours, so you can like goof off with your friends if you want during that time. Also, as we said, some people commuted, some people lived on campus, and for those of you who probably might not be able to afford living on campus, there are grants provided by Eureka and other organizations that.
Explorations and STEM is another one. A couple of our team had explorations and STEM.
So I got the Eureka grant, and it's basically, I think IGN is the best way to get Eureka grant. You get about $4,000 for the entire summer for your work, and I think they have reservations for IGN members because they know they're going to be out-of-state IGN members who want to stay on campus but cannot afford the housing, so that's why Eureka grant is there for you. Also about the time requirements, a lot of this will be up to you guys. So this was the guideline that we set up as a team and we all agreed on. When you guys formed your new team, you guys are gonna have new time requirements. Maybe you guys want to push a little bit further, try to get a best project in a category, so that's why you up the hours to 35 hours a week. Or you found out that your project requires a lot of dry lab work and you might push it back to 25 hours a week. A lot of this is up to you guys. It's very free form. We're just here to kind of set a guideline to you, kind of like let you guys see what our team did, and we got gold, so we did something
Yeah.
right,
So just make sure that like with the you deciding again, like if that's the matter of initiative, right? Don't decide, okay, let's just do like 0 hours per week, right? We have that right. You don't have that right.
You might not get on the team if you
Yeah.
do 0 hours a week. But
Yeah. So make sure that you're willing to put in the investment that it takes because it is synthetic biology. It is really fun. Like I'm not crazy. It actually is fun. But you need to put in the work. Otherwise, you don't get that return.
Yeah, and as we said before, it's completely up to you. So like what your goal for the summer is whatever you decide. So some teams read a research paper off of their project and have their name on that. A lot of teams also decide to turn their project into like a company. So a lot of the first place teams are on a track to sell their product. And in fact, about 80% of the synthetic biology, biotech companies that are around now started as IGEM teams. So there is the potential for that if you're interested. So yeah.
Alright, so these are our sponsors. They were really, really helpful in a lot of ways. I won't go into what each one did, but they really helped our project culminate to where it went.
Yeah, we got a lot of sponsors.
We got a lot of sponsors. I'm gonna give SW Safety a shout out because they gave us a lot of free gloves. So.
A lot of free gloves. If you go into our lab, you're gonna see these boxes with orange gloves.
Yeah.
They're all from it, and there's like a million, literally, actually a million gloves. Like they help out so much. So some of these companies not only send money, they also send us DNA-based base pairs so we can use. DNA is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And it's for them to give us free base pairs for us to kind of like fool around with and try to put it into bacteria is actually really, really helpful. You gotta realize that we are starved for money.
Yeah.
We are very starved for money.
Literally, all you have to do is like send out emails to these companies and ask, because it never hurts to ask. And often they just give you free things because they want to
want their
sponsor
name.
you and they want their name.
Yeah.
Hey,
We want
please
your name
stop.
in our presentation and
On
our
our
shirts.
shirts.
Yeah, and like DNA, like IDT gave us 20,000 base pairs of DNA. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it's inside.
I didn't really know what that meant to begin with IGEM, but it's 20,000, that's a big number, so.
Yeah, it's like there's like 4 zeros in it. It's a pretty impressive task. All right.
It is a lot, but anyway.
All right, so this is our information. If you guys want to take a picture of the slide, it has our Instagram, email, Facebook. So if you guys have any questions about the application, if something isn't clear, if you wanted some clarification on something we said during this presentation, you can reach out to us at any of these. Email is fastest.
Yeah, our application's on Facebook. I think there's also another slide that has a
Yeah.
link to it. But if anyone wants to take a picture of this, we'll do that and then we'll switch to the next slide.
All right.
So yeah, this is our application.
Yeah,
Um,
URL.
As you said before, the deadline is December 31st, 11:59 p.m. Because this is the 2019 team. So you kind of have to figure that out before.
Yeah. And we also need to go through the applications, have the advisors go through the applications and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, this might sound like a lot because of all the roles and everything, but you're not going to be alone. It's going to be a whole
you guys like work suggestions. It's really not that long.
Yeah,
There's
and
a few
because,
couple short
Yeah.
questions here.
Yeah, a lot of them are short questions.
I finished this on like a plane ride back from like Taiwan.
You know what? The time you submitted it makes total sense now.
Yeah. I think I submitted like because it was nighttime
It was
over there.
yeah,
Yeah.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, so it was afternoon when I submitted actually in Taiwan, so
Yeah.
it's really
And this is our wiki, so you can see what.
oh yeah, we forgot to mention the wiki. So so like every team has to make a website or a wiki page that explains our project and what results we had, so that like anyone can understand it. You know, it's not some obscure, weird scientific paper that only like 5 people know to read and know the background material to. iGEM wants you to make it so that you can read it with absolutely no experience in biology and understand what the project is actually about. So if you want to know what our project was about or any other project, just look at our wiki or another team's wiki that you're interested in.
So some of the teams go really hard with you, and they are like actually professionally designed websites. It was
Yeah.
pretty good.
I mean,
honestly.
ours is like
It was
ours is a
pretty
good like top tier, middle, upper middle.
You can look
class
through
tier.
all past Storybook IGN
Yeah.
Teams wiki, and you can kind of see the growth that we have made
Yeah.
just a wiki.
Yeah, this is probably like you also
There's a reason why we want
with
to
iGEM,
do
you're not just in one field, right? Like if you're a bio major, that doesn't mean you're never gonna touch code. Like I'm an EVH major, and I coded part of this website. Like this whole like clicking and it goes thing was me. So like you should expect yourself to branch out, to try out different fields and be involved in different things. Like the people that are in comps are gonna help with pipetting. The people that are chemistry aren't just gonna design the DNA. So it's gonna be pretty complex and pretty engaging, I would say. Like it's interdisciplinary, but not just in terms of the members, but what the members do.
Yeah, you learn a lot of different skills. Like I learned how to read a scientific paper very well and also write like a grant proposal, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. You're literally the PI of your own lab. Like you don't have a PI, so you guys become a 14-member PI, which is really cool.